I mean, let's face it. Okay, I've never done Tinder because I've been married for 30 years, but I've watched people do it, and I'm blown away by how fast they make that decision. And when I ask them about it, they're like, all I'm doing is saying you can have maybe a connection. You might be able to talk to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you think about it, LinkedIn's the same way. If you give someone that connection, you're just giving them permission to have a conversation with you on that private channel, and you can take it away from that person just as fast. So it's pretty low risk.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Josh Owen. As the owner of a video marketing company in New Orleans, I've been on the quest to learn everything I can about marketing. Everyone has a different style, different strategy, and a different experience. Is there a wrong way to do it? A right way to do it? Let's find out together as we make marketing make sense. Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic episode of Make Marketing Make Sense. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Tom Martin of Converse Digital, the founder of Converse Digital. Yeah. You also wrote a book as well. Good. What's the name of your book?
The Invisible Sale.
The Invisible Sale. I heard you're a prolific bourbon drinker as well.
I am, except it's Lent, so I'm taking a month off.
Oh, taking a month off? So hold that thought. But fantastic to have you joining me today, man. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much. I'm flattered to be invited.
Oh, man. I mean, me likewise. I mean, I'm so excited to talk about our topic today because I think it's a huge topic of discussion. I know it's always been something in the back burner, but we're talking about LinkedIn, using it as a sales tool for yourself and your business here in 2024. I know it keeps changing, and the landscape changed. Yeah. The landscape keeps changing, if I can get my words out. But, I mean, fantastic. I mean, I'm so excited to hear more from you about that topic.
Yeah, it's interesting how for the longest time, LinkedIn was the redheaded stepchild of social media platforms. And in probably about the last 5 years, everybody has kind of come around to your point of view. And in the last probably 2 years, they've absolutely come around to your point of view. And it's probably the number one question I get asked by prospects and clients all the time of, how do I do this? How do I make this work for me?
Yeah.
You got the right topic at the right time, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, exactly what you're saying. It's always like back in the day, it was like, oh, LinkedIn, yeah, whatever, I'll get to that. And now it's like, well, what do I need to do? I mean, the first things first is, how do you optimize your profile on LinkedIn? Like, what are the things that you tell people that you're coaching, how to, what to do for their LinkedIn profiles?
Yeah, the first thing I always tell them is you got to quit thinking about it as a digital resume, which was kind of what it was for the longest time, hence why it was the redheaded stepchild. And instead, I tell them, you need to think about it as like Tinder for business. It is literally a dating profile, but it's a dating profile for business connections, networks, prospects, leads, partners, jobs. Yeah. And we live in a swipe right, swipe left kind of world. People are making research says you're going to make your first impression. You're going to find what you think of me in the first 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So, think about that in terms of a LinkedIn profile. That's basically just top of the fold. Everything that's on the screen like that, someone's going to decide this is worthy of me spending more time or, I'm off to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems so no-brainer when you say it. It's like, make your personality, your profile, your personality, make it feel like you're a human, basically on your page.
But I think that just scares the hell out of people.
Yeah.
It really does. Everybody we live in a society where vulnerability is oftentimes, especially in sales, seen as a weakness, when actually I think it's a great strength.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to do, and people respond to it. They really, because they end up seeing a little something in you that isn't of themselves, and then, that creates that desire to say, I want to go deeper. I want to learn more about this person.
Yeah.
And then they start scrolling down the profile. And then they can kind of get a better picture of what you do, what you've done, how you could be valuable in their world. Right. And at that point, I mean, let's face it, I've never done Tinder because I've been married for 30 years, but I've watched people do it, and I'm blown away by how fast they make that decision. And when I ask them about it, they're like, all I'm doing is saying you can have maybe a connection. You might be able to talk to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you think about it, LinkedIn's the same way. If you give someone that connection, you're just giving them permission to have a conversation with you on that private channel. And you can take it away from that person just as fast. So it's pretty low risk.
Yeah.
And so your job is to get them to swipe right, give you the opportunity to open up that private messaging venue, and then once you get it, respect it.
Yeah.
Respect that opportunity.
Man, look at you. You're out there checking up on Tinder and then learning from it. That's amazing. I mean, one of the things you mentioned about, which is, having people, find interest in your profile. What are the things that you suggest to people to be doing for their profile to create that interest, to create that?
Well, I look at the headline, the header, their individual profile photo. I mean, so many times you go to someone's picture and they've got this either it's not them or it's them, but they're 20
Oh,
feet
no.
away from the camera. They're this big.
Yeah.
Or it's a picture where you can tell someone's around them. They've just cropped that person out. It's just, a lot of times they're not even smiling.
Yeah.
It's like, put a picture that someone's going to look at and go, wow, that looks like a nice person.
Yeah.
The header and the headline are huge. It used to be you would keyword stuff your headline for Google and for search. That really doesn't make any sense anymore. You don't have to. LinkedIn gives you some other ways to go around that. But more importantly, that headline should, when I get there, I should know exactly who you are and what your value is, who you help. I need to know that very quickly because that's how I'm going to make my decision whether or not I'm going to continue. Who are you? Can you help me, and how? Answer those 3 questions very quickly.
I mean, it seems like that's the thing we're always trying to hope for, But and one of the things that I think you've said before too is it's almost like you need to have this impression of yourself out there that people can see and either give good feedback, positive feedback towards, because you're not going to be there. It's not you. It's basically networking, but it's networking where they see you before you see them sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, when I was getting into business 30, 35 years ago, I knew when I was making a first impression because I was probably standing in the room or I was at least on the phone or I knew I had sent you a resume or something like that. Nowadays, I mean, if you're at dinner tonight and somebody asks you about LinkedIn, you should check this guy, Tom Martin, out. A first impression is going to get made. I'm going to have no idea it's being made. Right. And so it's really, you've got to prepare your digital profile, not just if you've got more than LinkedIn, you got to think about it in a wider frame. But if you're not like a content producer, you probably might just be LinkedIn. But you got to prepare it to say that if a perfect stranger sees it, what's their net takeaway?
Yeah.
And so I encourage people, build it and let 10 of your friends who will be honest with you actually tell you what they think of it.
Yeah,
and then listen
awesome.
to them. Don't get offended. Just fix
Take
what
the
they
feedback,
see.
do
Take
it.
the feedback
Come on
and,
now.
If they tell you your
don't be
picture's
stubborn.
ugly, get a new picture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but yeah,
great.
that's but really think about it because that is I think nowadays whether you like it or not, that's the world. I mean, everybody's Googling you before they ever call you.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, and a big part of that, and I think all of us are wanting that if we're in sales or we're in, we're a business owner and we want more sales. In any regards to that, we're always trying to expand our network and we're always trying to expand that. And I think LinkedIn is a great tool for that. And, for you, what are the ways that you tell people about how to expand your network for LinkedIn?
Well, the main thing is I tell people it's a process. You're not just going to sit down one day and do it. Let's say you've got 500 contacts in your network. I mean, it's going to take you 250 to 500 days to work through that entire list.
Yeah.
So just take 1 or 2 a day, go through, be strategic in terms of who you ask them to introduce you to. And then if they do it, keep in mind you're asking them to lend you their reputation.
Yeah.
And so honor that.
Yeah.
And when you do finally get an opportunity to talk to somebody or reach out to somebody, for the love of God, don't try to sell them something.
Yeah.
You've been given this incredibly privileged opportunity to start having a conversation with my friend, and I vouched for you. So that's why they're taking the conversation 9 times out of 10. So have a conversation.
Yeah.
Talk to them. Build a relationship. Oftentimes you'll find out you think you know what you can sell them. But as you talk to them, you can either realize that actually isn't what they need, or they need that and 5 other things I do that I had no idea.
Right.
And so if you'll take that time, build that relationship, build some credibility, then either they'll ask you to sell them if you're really lucky, or when you do transition into that, it's not going to be so off-putting to them.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like, we've been talking, you've been hearing some pain points I have, and you're offering some things that can help me.
Yeah.
And then, just have that conversation and be helpful.
Yeah. I guess, and what I'm hearing in there too is I know a lot of people want to sell you on something, or you want to have a conversation that kind of is around business. When you're trying to get introduced to somebody, not trying to sell them, but at the same time trying to converse with them, what do you usually try to steer people, like the conversation? What do you try to talk about when you first start talking with someone that you've been introduced to? What do you try and steer the conversation around?
To a pain, if I'm being introduced to someone to a pain point that I know they have, because the other thing is when I go to ask for a referral, whether it's on LinkedIn or anywhere, I will call the person that I'm asking it to make that referral. I'll email them, and I'll ask them to tell me, do you agree? Is this someone I can help?
Yeah.
And if so, what do you think the most important thing I can do? Or what problems are they having? What challenges are they having? And sometimes there's been many times where they're like, I don't know if you can help them or not, Tom, but I do know they're struggling with X, Y, Z. So in that case, I'll reach out and say, hey, Josh, connected us. I appreciate you being willing to have a conversation. He mentioned you have a problem with consistent content production for your inbound marketing. And, there's this other guy, Joe, over here that I know in my network who his company, Comfy they do this for people and it's really economical.
Yeah.
Would you like me to introduce the two of you?
Yeah.
By the way, here's a link to their website.
Yeah.
I won't give him your information if you don't give me permission.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many times people will
That's
say yes
awesome.
to that. So now they're like, wow, this is a nice guy. I thought he was going to sell me something. And he actually kind of sold me, but he didn't sell me him. He sold me another resource over here that actually I do need. Yeah. And so it's just really being like that. I mean, again, I find that if you're just human with people, it's so refreshing because it's so uncommon. Yeah. That alone will just bring their guard down, and then they'll start to talk to you a little bit more.
So in this scenario, just so I'm clear on it too, is like you're kind of, is this also like you're kind of coaching your person or like giving them, because one thing I've noticed sometimes is if I want someone to introduce me, a lot of times they want to get a lot of information from me to make sure they're introducing me in the right way or whatever. So do you provide them with kind of like a...
Oh yeah, I've gone so far as to actually go straight the email. Yeah. Or a couple of things. I'll say, here's 5 ways I think I can help. Or a lot of times, I do a lot of public speaking, and so a lot of times I'm wanting to meet somebody because they're in charge of booking a speaker for a conference, and I'll send 2 or 3 different talks outlined, saying these are who these are for. Do you, and that way they can just copy paste and forward it, type of thing. But especially if you're asking somebody for more than one introduction. If you've gone through maybe their LinkedIn and you found 4 or 5 people, you want to make it easy because that you don't want there to be any friction, not friction in like they're verklempt, but friction in, where am I going to find the time to do this? I'm already busy. Now he wants me to introduce him to 5 people. So anything that you can do in that realm, I think helps enormously. But then also just taking the time to say, tell me about the person beyond what I can see in public, I think positions you to have a better conversation if and when that opportunity presents itself.
And when you ask people about it in these conversations that you're having, do you want them to introduce you in LinkedIn? Or do you want them to introduce you to someone via email, text? Like, what's the best way for them that you've noticed is the way to, because you've looked at their profile, you've seen all the LinkedIn people that you want to talk to from their network. What do you do?
I leave it up to them. They're going to know that person better than I am. They're going to know if that person's truly on LinkedIn all the time. But I find most people choose email.
Gotcha.
Just, it's easier. Especially if you're copy and pasting, but it's just easier to write and type, and everybody's got email on their phone. They may not be checking LinkedIn. Text, unless they know the person's a texter versus an emailer, they usually won't do that. And email's nice too because they can just do, I'm sure you've done it, like the standard introduction email. Josh meet Tom, Tom meet Josh. Here's this about. Here's this about. My work here is done. You two enjoy your conversation. Perfect. And so that's just, it could just be me. It could be the people I'm interfacing with. But that tends to be that's their preferred format.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, no, that makes sense because I think a lot of times when we're all looking at it, we're trying to, I think there's such a wide ocean that you're trying to figure out, like, well, what's the best methodology and what can we do to improve ourselves for that methodology. So and when we're talking about that as well on LinkedIn, I know too LinkedIn has a lot of different tools that they can use to optimize this. What are some of the tools that you say are the best to use and how to use them?
I used to really rag on Navigator because of how much money it is for how little benefit it provides.
Well, they're trying to get me they're trying to say, hey, it's $0 for a month, give it a try, So they're
I gotta tell you, I changed my I don't know how long ago. You can go look at my YouTube channel.
Oh yeah.
You can go see when I posted the video. It changed at one point in time.
It's like,
you can see the video.
We'll check the logs.
Yeah, check the log. You'll see the video that says, hey, I know I've been ragging on it, but a couple of months ago they introduced a couple of features that now it makes it very useful. And the most important one is, Navigator's always been great because of the search capability. You can search deeper. You can search so much more refined. You can really, really take it down to a pinpoint and really boil the ocean to find the people who truly are going to be your best prospects. But the second thing it did is, and especially as you network and you get a lot of contacts, the LinkedIn feed basically becomes worthless because you either got to let the algo tell you what is the stuff you should look at, or you got to go resend. And I mean, I have over 2,000 contacts and people I follow. It's just an ocean of knowledge. It can't. But if you go into Navigator, and if you've been good about creating very finite lists that are very homogenous, I can go in and say, you know what, we're launching a new, like I launched a new course a couple of weeks ago, and it was originally designed for people who were kind of new to selling or people who were fresh out of college in sales. So I could build a list of people inside Navigator that match that persona. I can go in and say, I only want to see LinkedIn activity from this group of people. And I could get in there, and every day for a couple of weeks prior to launch, I could be in there and I could be interacting with those folks and raising my profile with them so they see me, so that then when the course goes live, because I've been interacting with them and they've been interacting with me, more than likely LinkedIn's going to push that post up in their feed.
Yeah.
If I do reach out to them through LinkedIn in the feed, in the private messaging app, it's not going to feel so odd. That's to me, that's worth the money. It actually makes the LinkedIn feed useful again. Whereas the main feed, to me, I have a really hard time with it.
Yeah.
It's just too much information coming too fast.
Yeah, so many people posting. I mean, well, that's really interesting. Do you know, because when you say interact with these people, because is that really helping your sales efforts as well? Like when you're trying to sell people like through LinkedIn or whatever, you know, by interacting with them, and, you know, maybe if you want to explain what you mean by interacting, you know, that might be helpful.
Absolutely. Too. You know, I can track it in the analytics. If I start just doing things like viewing people's profiles and maybe liking a couple of things on their, or following them and things of that nature, it's amazing how many more of my own profiles are getting viewed, and you can see who's viewing it, and you can see the one-to-one relationship, and it's the other thing too is that I can start a conversation with a perfect stranger. And if they put a piece of content out there, I can weigh in on that content. I can say, that's really interesting. I've actually seen it the other way. And now you're having a conversation with somebody who might be a second or third degree connection on LinkedIn, but they're in my little list. They're somebody I want to get to know. And then after we've warmed up a little bit, then it's really easy to say, man, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I'd like to make sure I don't miss any of your content in the future. Let's connect.
Yeah. Wow.
Works really well.
Yeah.
Or if I sort of warm those folks up, you know, my most successful connection request message is just, hey, I'm Tom Martin.
Yeah.
I share the best information I find or create around business development. If you think that would make your feed more valuable, let's connect.
Yeah.
If you disagree later on, you can disconnect.
Yeah.
I get like a 17% acceptance rate.
Wow.
Which doesn't sound like much until you do it at scale.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're adding a lot of contacts.
Yeah.
And they're telling you by accepting, oh yeah, I'm interested in that. So they've not, you know, now they're at least a prospect because they're interested in selling, in sales. Now you've boiled the ocean.
Yeah.
You've got a definable list.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, it definitely seems like, you know, especially with Sales Navigator, that it's becoming more refinable. So you're able to find those people, but also, you know, from what you're saying as well, you're able to really connect with these individuals. And once you take that, you can start selling them and building that in.
And if you're really disciplined about your list creation, you can begin to automate a lot of it. You can actually put in automation of, you know, my sequence to reach out to somebody is probably 40 days long. From the first time I view their profile to liking and, you know, going through all of these sort of warm-ups.
Yeah.
It's 30 to 40 days before they finally get a request from me that says, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. If you're interested, let's connect.
And that's all automated.
And it's all automated.
Wow.
Because I'm not going to sit there and copy and paste the same 129 character message. I mean, you know, that's silly.
Yeah.
And it's, but again, you're also not really doing anything. You're not spamming them with message after message. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm just saying, I think I can be helpful to you. Yeah. If you agree, let's connect. If not, don't.
Yeah.
Simple.
Do you almost feel like LinkedIn is a replacement in some ways of like old-fashioned networking?
It can be if you're trying to network outside, you know, if you're non-geographic.
Yeah.
I actually, it's kind of interesting you said, because in 24, I made a conscious effort to bring a lot more offline networking into my life.
Interesting. Okay.
Because my clients have, my first agency that I had with my wife, we were young, we were doing great, and then Katrina came, and all of our clients went out of business. So then we went out of business, and I had never thought about that scenario. I'd done everything else you're supposed to do as an agency owner not to have that happen. And so when I started Converse Digital in 2010, I think that oh God, we just lost our entire household income moment was still very fresh, and so I almost had no clients in New Orleans. I prospected almost entirely virtually, LinkedIn outside of the city, which is probably why when the pandemic came, I was fine because I was already doing virtual everything.
Yeah.
But I turned around and I was like, wow, I don't know anybody in my own city, or I don't have any contacts or any clients in my own city. So I've actually gone back, and I've been really pleasantly surprised at the results. I think that old-fashioned networking, when done well, is still just best bang for your buck.
Wow.
You know, lunch is cheap.
Yeah.
It's really cheap.
Yeah.
and if you do it and you do it well, and you're not like, playing, business card ninja who can flop theirs out the fastest, it is truly effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so in that, I mean, because we're talking about LinkedIn. So like, where does LinkedIn fit within that profile? Like from now that you've re-engaged with old-fashioned networking, where does LinkedIn fit within that?
Perfect example. I was at a breakfast yesterday morning, met a couple of folks, got back to my office, was putting them in the CRM, went to their LinkedIn profiles to kind of just learn more about what I learned in the 2 minutes we talked.
Yeah.
And one of the young men, just looking at who I had mutual connections with him. And just looking at him, I was able to figure out, okay, the kid probably went to Jesuit. I shouldn't say kid, he's like 30 years old. But he probably went to Jesuit. And he probably knew my son because there were a couple of people who were in my son's graduating class. And so when I emailed the guy this morning to say, I really enjoyed meeting yesterday. By the way, I'm assuming you're a Jesuit guy. And did you know by chance my son, because you guys have, some of your contacts are his buddies that he graduated with. I got an email back. I am a Jesuit guy, and yes, I know your son.
Oh, wow.
We graduated in 17 together, blah, 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 blah. Tell him I said hello. What's he been up to?
Yeah.
And so I emailed back. I will absolutely. This is what he's been up to.
Because you found that from his LinkedIn profile.
And it didn't. I didn't even scroll down to his education to see Jesuit. A couple of his contacts that were my contacts were my son's best buddies in high school. So I'm like, this guy has to be a Jesuit guy, and he has to probably be either a year above or a year below my son, in terms of graduation date. So I got to have this great little, instead of, hey, it was really nice to meet you, blah, 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 I was able to say, hey, you're a Jesuit guy, my kid's a Jesuit guy, Yeah, actually, we knew each other. Tell him we said, oh, what's he been up to? And we were, you had a conversation.
Yeah.
Now, will that matriculate into anything? I don't know.
Yeah.
But nothing bad's gonna happen.
Yeah, that only goes up.
It only goes up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think, and I didn't even ask for the LinkedIn connection. I'll probably maybe I probably will, because I always like to do that, because people change jobs. Even if you have their email address, it can change.
Right.
But they always have their LinkedIn, and so I usually will. But I guarantee you, when I do, he's going to say, absolutely, click, connect. That's awesome. And so now you've got a connection for life.
Yeah.
And again, it's just, will it go anywhere? I don't know.
Yeah.
But like you said, no place to go but up. Yeah. It's not going down.
Yeah. Because I think, too, and from what I've noticed about it, and this is kind of like maybe the way we can wrap it up, too, is I was, when you're doing only networking in person, I feel like you're always thinking like, well, what do I do now? And LinkedIn is that kind of in between where it's like, well, you can always be, building out your sales pipeline in LinkedIn. You can always be reaching out to people there through LinkedIn, in between like the events that aren't happening in your city.
Well, or if you're going to an event, like if you're going to a conference, for instance, and you've got people in your LinkedIn that you're connected to, maybe you've never met in person, but you're pretty sure they might be at that conference. I'll create a group of them, and on the airplane ride out to the conference, I'm scrolling. And I'm really just trying to memorize their face, so that when I'm at the conference, I can go, man, I don't know who that is, but that's somebody I wanted to meet.
Yeah,
oh, that's Josh.
Yeah.
And then, I actually did it one time.
I didn't know you were wanting to meet me that bad.
I was stalking you, man. I was,
now we know.
You were
That's
like,
great,
you were like the ex-girlfriend I was stalking. But no, and I've had it work, where I've been on a stage and I see somebody in the audience and I'm like, maybe I'll exit stage left when I'm done today instead of stage right, because if I go stage left, I'm gonna walk right by them.
Yeah.
And then, hey, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. It's just you create that, what it feels like a completely random. Yeah. Hey, I can't believe we ran into each other. No, I made this happen. Yeah. I made this happen by being smart and using the tools that were given to make my networking more effective. So the two really, I think, can work hand in hand.
Yeah.
If you're disciplined about it and you use them. So yeah, it's a good way to just purely network or to support your offline networking.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, I think that's a great place to really wrap things up, and it was fantastic talking to you about this. Thanks for joining me. The last part we'd like to do here is, for you to to tell all the people out there what your socials are and where they can find you on the digital sphere.
Well, it's really easy. I've been in this so long, I actually have my name. Tom Martin is usually where you'll find me on pretty much any social network, or you can just go to conversedigital.com. And if you're there, you can hit What We Think. There's about 300, maybe 400 articles that are there on all things networking and selling and so forth. Feel free to go read them for free. If you like what you find, sign up. Yeah. And when I publish, you'll get something new.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Well, thanks again, man, for joining us. And we'll see you all in the next one. This has been Make Marketing Make Sense, brought to you by Comfystone. If you need video content for social media, your website, or email marketing, hit up Comfystone at comfystone.com and follow Comfystone on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.